Hello and welcome to the Board Game BBQ Podcast, the greatest barbecue podcast this side of the equator. Shall I say that? I don't think there are. Oh, there's others, surely, this side of the equator.
There's definitely other barbecue ones, but not board game and barbecue ones.
That's a good point. That's a good point. And if you add enough caveats, you're the best in some category, right?
Yep.
You could say the best barbecue podcast this side of the equator that has Adrian, Mitch, and Joe on this episode. How are you, gentlemen?
Yeah, doing good, thanks.
Very good. Very, very good.
That's good. Very good indeed. So I believe we've been a while since we've been on Adrian, and this is the first time, for myself at least, that I've been on with Joe. Yeah.
Oh, what a delight!
I think you you sat in on a couple of episodes as a trainee back when. I think you were trialling us more than us trialling you, but
I'm not so sure.
So either way, no, it's great. It's great to be on with you guys, and I'm looking forward to talking about a whole bunch of games and different things. And I know that the big weekend that we all spent up in Brisbane has featured quite heavily in the last couple of episodes because we did all get away there and we all had a bit of a blast. I was the only one. Well, actually, no. Connor and I were the only ones that weren't actually allowed to sleep in Adrian's house. That was that was interesting. He forced us to sleep outside in tents, but no, we had a blast all the same. How about you guys? What have you been up to in terms of your gaming experiences over the last couple of weeks?
Well, for me, it was hosting you guys was great. It was an absolute blast. It was chaos from the very start till the very end, and even chaos 2.5 weeks after you all left, which I'll disclose later on at the end of my rant. But,
or is that getting saved for the After Dark podcast Patreon version?
Oh, it's okay. I can keep it G-rated, PG rated, or slightly M-rated. It will be fine. It will be fine. No one will come for us. I promise. But yeah, it was just good. It was really nice to have everybody together. I mean, we haven't done that before since the very first retreat, which was a long, long time ago, and obviously all the new members, and we've all met each other before at various events across Australia, but it was just really nice to all be together in the same space. It was just, it was nice for Finn as well, because Finn's now a lot older, so he got to see the guys again and everyone again as an older kid, and it was just nice. It was just lovely to have everyone together. I really, really, really enjoyed it. It was fun. So
yeah, it was pretty.
wild. Mitch doing like crazy Costco runs. Like I mean, you got here and then you hung out a bit. Then you went and picked up Connor and went to Costco.
Well, when you say I hung out for a bit, we arrived the night before, so I hung out for a whole night.
Yeah,
it was the second day.
Then you did the Costco run, but I've got more food and beer and Mountain Dew than when I started the weekend. So like you all left me with way more snacks and treats than I had when I started this endeavor. Oh, I'm not complaining. Like it was fine. They'll get used. Don't worry about it. But it was just once we collected a random jar from this thing and a random bottle from this space and sort of collected them all into one fridge, it filled the entire fridge with just drinks. And I was like, that's a lot. But it's great. It's definitely appreciated because I'll just chip away at those. In regards to gaming experiences, I had so many. Like, it was so nice to actually sit down and play games. I'd been working 6 days a week pretty much to the lead up to this sort of weekend. And it was also my birthday, so it was just a great excuse to just down tools, down work, no emails and all that sort of stuff, and just play lots of games and just sort of all hang out together. But the first game that I played was, I believe, Millennium with Dana, Lauren, and Finn. And it was just good fun. It was a great little game. It was just nice for everyone to sit down and play something super chilled out and have Finn get involved. Give Dana definitely a fair bit of cheeky lip, which was quite funny to see as ever. And I had to sit next to Finn while he's doing it and be like, oi, you can't talk like that, But yeah, it was great fun. But also straight from that, I think we played Trailblazers after that, then straight into Pipeline, because we played Trailblazers. Everyone really enjoyed it. So we were all keen to up the ante and take it straight into Pipeline. And that was so fun. The photo of Dana and Lauren, like before we played, holding the box and having like lovely smiles. And this is so lovely to like Lauren putting her 4 fingers on her head and chanting 4-letter words over and over and over again, trying to figure out the puzzle and just getting lost in it and just trying to maximize, your efficiency, because that game's all about maximizing efficiency. It was just great. I hope they really enjoyed it. I think it definitely needs multiple plays to sort of really solidify how you feel about that game, because it is brutal on the brain. I think they enjoyed the experience, and hopefully we can get it to the table again. So, yeah,
fair enough.
Yeah.
And what about you, Joe? Do you have any memorable moments from the weekend?
Yeah, it was so much fun. It didn't start off the best.
Yeah,
that's right.
I got on my flight. I was like, yeah, great. We're going to get there. And half an hour in, they're like, oh, we need to go back to Melbourne and land and go back. And there's just a minor thing we need to do. We'll reset the computer and head straight back off. They lied.
You actually got up in the air. I don't know if I realised that you were actually in the air.
They were in the air.
We're in the air.
I thought you were taxiing, and then they just said no. Yeah, right.
We'd been flying for half an hour, and the seatbelt sides lights hadn't come off. And I was like, okay, something's not right.
Yeah.
Then they said, we're going to land. It's just a quick computer glitch. It turned out that the landing gear just didn't go up, and then they couldn't figure out how to get it to go up. And so the whole flight was cancelled of like 280 people. It's one of those really big planes. And so I wasn't rebooked onto a flight until, I think I was leaving at like 4:30. I didn't get onto a flight until 10:30, and I was pretty down about it. Life's been a bit harder lately, some trials and tribulations on my end. So I was really looking forward to it, and it felt like a bit of a blow. But
I refused to go to bed though, Joe. I was like, nice. I'm staying until Joe arrives, and I remember waking up on my game room floor.
Yeah.
To like people laughing at me, I think, snoring, because I was on the floor just snoring away.
But it was like, I didn't even contemplate going to bed. I'm pretty sure I was awake when Joe arrived. It was something like,
yeah.
So what's the go with you? Like, are you just a lightweight or what?
Dude, I was up at 4:00 in the morning. Like, I was already up. You know me. So to be up at 1 a.m. is a challenge.
Someone called the ambulance.
I would, but I don't get very good cell service here.
So. We know that. So once I got there, it was great. It was such an awesome weekend. It was exactly what I needed. Got to play some great games with some great people, and just felt very, very buoyed and very kind of refreshed leaving, even though we'd like kind of burnt the candle at both ends and just was playing games nonstop. It was just really refreshing. So I had such a good time.
Yeah, it was great. Well, if we jump into the games, I'm going to jump into a game from that weekend, which was a bit of a highlight for me, and some good stories I think came out of it as well. And one that I'd never really heard of before. I'd never really discussed it before. I've never really seen it in board game circles. But Chris busted it out, and it's called Blockbuster by Spin Master Games, I think. And Blockbuster is, it's a take on the old Blockbuster chains where we used to go and hire videos. Actually, I liked the game so much I bought it when I got back. The premise of the game is you essentially have two teams, and it's in movie trivia, but it plays out a little differently. So you nominate two people each round that'll be dueling. They then go into a specific category. So you draw a category card out, and each person has to answer one question, with one movie that matches the category that was drawn, and within, I think it was 15 seconds from memory with the timer. They stop the clock, and the next person has 15 seconds to add another movie. And you keep going back and forth until one person loses and one person wins. And then the second stage is where that person who won the duel for their team, they draw 6 other cards with all movies on them, and they get to choose which ones they're going to use to perform a series of clues for their team. So there's 3 different types of clues. The first one is just one word. The second one is a quote from a film, and the third one is to act it out like a charade. And they get to choose which movies they're going to do for each of those categories. They also get to choose which 3 the other team are going to do, and they allocate in their films as well. So it's good. The player that wins the duel gets the advantage, and then it's just a really cool game of playing with your team and trying to get them to guess the movies through those clues and things. And it's loads of fun, plays with heaps of people. We played it that night at your place, 80. What do we have, 15, 20 people there? Everyone was into it.
The absolute perfect game for the perfect time of night, the perfect group. Like, it was just so fun. I was definitely mildly intoxicated at this point because I can't remember what the game was about until you told me then. Because I was like, did that happen? I can't remember. I remember you and Dan going head to head about cowboys, movies.
That was one of the highlights for me. Because yes, I sat down head to head to Dan, and I'm like, righto, Dan, let's flip this dual card over. What's the category going to be? Westerns. And I was like, boom, you are in trouble, Dan. So I felt for Dan, but only fitting that the two old dudes get westerns to go head to head.
It was just fun. It doesn't matter in that sort of game who wins, who loses. It's just trying to do the activities is more fun than getting any kind of points.
No, it was definitely good to
winning.
But he held his own. I thought it was a lock. I thought it's westerns. It's my category. This is going to be a walk. But he did great.
Who did I go up to in the head to head? Because I can't remember.
I think you and I went head to head on a later category.
It was movie deaths. I had people who with I believe I had someone where it was like movies where people died. Or the
movies where the villains die in the end.
The villains die. That was it.
That's right. That was you and not me, and it was. I think it was because it was just like any action film. You could just pick.
Yeah, there's so many. We were going back and forward like so many times. Yeah, it was really good. And then I think I fumbled at the end because I was like, I can't say the sequel because we'd ruled that out that you can't just go Guardians 1, Guardians 2, that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But it was so fun. I had a great time. That was such a great game. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So.
The thing that I thought was really funny is that you basically got to recycle all the westerns again.
Yeah, exactly.
Just had the same movies again.
Every western, the bad guy dies in the end. Yeah, exactly. So, that might have been considered cheating, but whatever.
I feel like Blockbuster gives you that. It's the same vibe as Monica's, where it's one of those games where you can get the energy levels back up in everyone in the room. I use Monica's a lot when I'm playing, and Blockbuster would be the same when you're having a game day at your house and you've just had lunch, everyone's kind of feeling that slump and you want to get the energy back up, play Monica's or something like Blockbuster, and it just gets everyone amped and yelling at each other and just raises the energy levels again. I had so much fun with this game. It was great.
What category do you get? Can you remember?
The one that I bombed, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I remember beating, I think it was Megs, against movies that have movies that are set in high schools, I think.
Yeah, right. Okay. That's a tough one.
The thing that's really, what I really liked about the game is that head-to-head part really just ratchets the tension and the stress up, because you can be sitting there while other people are doing, thinking all of these movies off the top of your head. But as soon as the spotlight's on you and you've got the 15 seconds in front of you, you just go blank.
Doesn't the app go tick, 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 tick? Doesn't it do that as well? Yeah, because that is so stressful. Because when you fumble, you've done 5 seconds worth of that ticking. All of a sudden,
you just focus on the ticking.
And you're out. You're out. It's so hard. It's really good.
And then you get times where Jules gives a clue for Friday the 13th and he says Kruger, as in Freddy Krueger. That's right. And
we're hockey mask or whatever.
But then Harry got it anyway.
Yeah.
And both of them were like, well, I don't know horror movies, so I was just guessing. It's like you can still have a good time and be mildly successful, even if you don't know the first thing about movies that you're trying to get them to guess.
Yeah.
So it was good. What other? We'll go to Adrian. You got any other games from the weekend that you thought were highlights?
I think a massive. I'm even almost potentially saying this might have been the best game of the entire weekend, because it was played by everybody, enjoyed by everybody. I saw it played multiple times at multiple tables throughout the Brisbane game day, and that was Sea of Strife. I feel that just everybody was on point with that game. Everyone loved it. The concept is great. It's very interesting. Mitch hates it, of course, because everyone else loved it. If everyone loves it and thinks it's good, it's obviously poo-poo for Mitch. So that's a fair analogy. So it just shows you how good it is, really. If you don't like it, we all love it. But I thought it was very clever. I thought it was very fun, very quick, a good trick taker. It's got that information aspect where you kind of, what cards have been dumped if you can remember. You don't have to remember all of them. You just have to remember a few of them, and they can really help you pull off a win. But it's just a very clever trick taker game. It's very simple.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joe, did you enjoy it? Because
I didn't play it, so
you didn't play it. Okay.
If people said, "Do you want to play a trick taker?" I probably would have run the other way. So that may be why.
Oh, really? You're not a big trick taker fan?
No.
You had that awesome trick taker game that you pulled out on Sunday, and that was phenomenal. Can you explain that a little bit? Sorry, Sea of Strife was brilliant. super simple. Check it out. But Joe, this game blew my mind.
Yeah, so I think it was one of the Patreon podcasts that I talked about it, gave away my secret that I hate trick takers. But for me, I find trick takers, if you didn't grow up with trick takers and you don't have that language and it's just a standard trick taker, people blow you out of the water because they have that understanding of looking at a hand and knowing, okay, I'm going to win this many tricks based on the hand alone, whereas I don't have that at all.
Yeah, right.
So that's why I've, like Skull King, for example, just not enjoyed it when I play it with people who know how to play.
Yeah.
So I seek out trick takers that have twists that change it in a way that it makes it levels the playing field for people who haven't played trick takers before.
Like when you blitzed us all at Crime Hotel.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, tell everyone more about the times that I
No, we can move on. Sorry, I interrupted. Keep going.
The one we played at Adrian's house was Bug Council of Backyardia, which I think I've talked about on the pod before. I'm not sure. It's a trick taker. It was created by a Japanese company. It was initially on Kickstarter, but then the Kickstarter didn't fund, so they ended up just releasing it anyway. I got it as a pre-order. It is a trick taker, standard trick taker, but it's got a Mancala mechanism in the middle. There are 5 suits, and each suit is represented in the Mancala. So it's this kind of each suit around a circle has a space. And then the thing that's interesting about the game is that the trumps in the game are dictated essentially by the strength of a particular faction. And the strength of a faction is dictated by the number of cubes on that faction space. So, for example, it's bug themed. So it's mosquitoes, cockroaches, bees, for example. The person who gets to manipulate the cubes in the Mancala is the person who plays the lowest card that's on suit. And so that means that there's a bit of a strategic element to it where it's like, well, I actually want to lose this trick so I can change where the cubes are going to go and have the power over that. So that then will set me up for future rounds, for example.
But it comes at the cost of winning the trick.
Well, yeah, you lose the trick, so you don't win that particular trick. Yeah. And in typical trick takers, you can choose to either win no tricks or try and win as many tricks as you can. So you can choose that at the start of the round, depending on your hand.
I almost lost all my tricks. Then Harry dogged me somehow. But yeah, it was...
He does that.
Yeah,
It was very good. It was really interesting.
Really clever.
I didn't get to play the whole game because I can't remember why. I had to go help do something. But yeah, it was really very solid. And like you said, Joe, if you're looking for a trick taker with a different twist and also something that's very kind of puzzly and interesting as well, like it really is, it's a very good game. Now, I know it's not available, but I have heard that they're doing another Kickstarter with very limited copies of the game itself, not just the expansion. So it's definitely worth checking out. So
highly recommend it. And I kind of think of it as like a trick taker for board gamers because it's a really interesting fusion of a board game and a trick taker. So
what was the name again? Sorry,
it's the Bug Council of Backyardia.
Really easy to remember name.
Rolls right off the tongue.
Have no trouble Googling that at all.
In terms of games you've been up to lately, Joe, what have you been enjoying over the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, so at Adrian's birthday, the game that stands out to me the most was That's Not a Hat, which the team talked about in the last podcast. That was so fun. I've already ordered that, just like Dan. I've ordered that on Amazon as well, so that's on my way to me.
I think Ravensburger are like, what the hell happened to this game all of a sudden?
The huge spike.
Yeah, in Australia, we've just sold out. Like, what's going on?
I actually got to play a game with Joe that we could both briefly talk about.
Oh, yeah.
We didn't finish it, but I'd like to talk about it because I felt like I joined like the Naughty Boys Club, like yours and Jules's club, whatever it's called, Bad Boys Club.
# Mean Boys Club.
Mean Boys, there we go. Not Naughty Boys.
Yeah, that's a different club that Jules and I are part of.
Sorry about that. That's a mistake. We'll edit that out. Anyway, La Familia, is that how you say it? La Familia?
Yeah.
And I'll let you explain most of it, but the concept behind it, it blew me away. So for someone that's into area control games and stuff and loves that high conflict and strategic play, how did you find that game as just a taster? Because we didn't finish the game, but we started to get a good flow and understand what we were doing. How did you find it?
Yeah, so I hadn't really heard of this game before, but I think you can only play it at 4 players. Is that right?
Yes, and that's why I actually respect the game, because they didn't try and wedge something in. They just said it's 4 players or nothing. That's it. That's how the game's meant to be played. So
I think I probably would have seen it and just kind of disregarded it because getting an exact player count I think is really difficult. But I'm so glad that you got me into play it, Adrian, because it was extremely fun. It had typical area control mechanics. You know, you have a phase where you're setting stuff up on the board in terms of getting. So the theme is that you're in Sicily in the 1980s, and it's all about the mafia wars in Sicily in that period of time. So you're playing as different factions in the mafia wars, and it's 2v2 essentially. So you and a teammate and two aligned mafia families, and you're playing against two other people. And it's a typical area control where you have a setup phase and then a resolution phase with what's happening on the board. I can't remember much more than that. What I really enjoyed was the teamwork aspect of it. That was really fun, because usually when you're playing a 4-player area control game, you're in it for yourself and you're trying to screw everyone over. But us being able to like whisper to each other against Jules and Jace and like planning and plotting, I thought was a really cool element of the game.
Well, we had a shared player aid which had the map on, and we were able to point at different locations and like look at each other and say like, this is the one that we want to take. This is where we're going next. We're going to take this, because in the game, each region is broken up to 3 smaller regions. I can't remember the exact terminology, but
like a
essentially, province. If you take all 3 and hold one state, you end up getting a token, and that gives you bonuses, unlock powers, and also I think if you hold 4 of those or 5 of those by the end of the game, or that triggers the end of the game, and you're just trying to get these larger regions. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'm not into those kind of games at all, but I think like games like 500 and stuff, I know that's a trick taker, but I like that 2v2. I think because I grew up with that game, I enjoyed that aspect. And I think the planning together and having someone that has much better understanding on how these things play out on my side was really fun, because I was like, I don't really know what I'm doing, so I'll just do the economics bit. Like I'll build more factories and drug labs, and I'll get us lots of money, and you just do all the bang bang smashy stuff and help me with that bit. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was, and it looked beautiful.
Yeah.
Like it was a phenomenal looking game, but it's very hard, like you say, to get 4 people every time. It's a hard sell, but I think it's worth it. I really, if you like your area control games and you've got a group that are definitely going to play at 4, you will love this game. So I would definitely advise even just looking into it.
So it's La Familia.
Yeah.
La Familia.
I'd love to play it and get a full game in to then be able to talk about it in more detail on the pod, because I think
100%.
there are lots of people in the community that would really enjoy this game.
100%.
And it's I don't think we covered it off, but the theme is essentially you're a mafia boss and you're taking your family and trying to spread out and dominate, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, very good. Well, I'm gonna talk about a game that I received this week that given to us for review by VR Distribution, and it's called Medical Mysteries New York. I didn't know anything about this game when they said that they had copies up for review, and I thought I'll check it out. And reading the description, it sounded a bit like your exit the game or unlock, any of those sort of escape roomy type puzzle games. And I got it, and I've played a couple of the cases that are in it. Can't remember how many it comes with. I think it comes with a tutorial and 4 cases. So there's a bit of content in there. It does a couple of things differently, like the way that it sort of unfolds and unwraps. I'll try not to give any spoilers or anything, but the way that it unfolds the clues and you're working out how the story unfolds is a little different. The theme, obviously, is entirely new to me in terms of these puzzle type aspect, mystery type games, right? The premise is set around an emergency room. So you're in a hospital, and the starting card of each of the scenarios is that someone has presented to the emergency room and they're suffering from these ailments. And what are you going to do next, essentially? So then you have a number of different resources at your disposal. You have different specialists that you can refer to. So if you think that, they might want to see a cardiologist, or they might want to see a endocrinologist, or whomever else. Leeches. Yeah, I don't recall leeches being in it, but they might be in some of the more advanced cases. And yeah, you're essentially then going back and forth and breaking down the symptoms, running certain tests. You can order blood tests. You can order these different, things. You can prescribe medicines. The way that you decide on what you're going to do for those things, that it comes with like supporting documentation. So there's a booklet that says, here are all the different medicines that are available in the game, and a short explanation of what each of them do. So if someone presents with, laboured breathing or something like that, there may be a drug in the drug booklet that refers to, will relieve laboured breathing. So you can, you don't have to be a doctor. You don't have to have medical knowledge. You just leverage the information that they provide you in the game, sort of thing. And then you work your way through. The other twist is that as the game progresses, there's sort of checkpoints, I guess you would call them, where each action you take is a passage of amount of time. And so when you get through to certain time frames, it'll say, you've reached this time of the day. Now you need to read scenario card X. And then the situation ramps up based on what you've done up to then. It might say your patient's now suffering more pain, and things ramp up and things will change. So the progression of your case changes as you go along, and based on how effective or ineffective you've been in identifying what the symptoms are and what the symptoms are pointing to, and whether you've supplied the correct treatments, I guess, to address the case. And then the objective overall is to get through the night and have the patient be healthy and calm in recovery by the end of the game. Yeah, it's pretty fun. Does it do anything amazingly different to any of some of these other sort of pick a path adventures or mystery, unsolved mystery type games? Probably not. It's all along similar lines, but I think that theme is fresh and new and makes it quite interesting from that perspective.
I feel like it might have done something new. I feel
What's
like
that?
it might have made you think you could be a doctor, which terrifies me. Could you imagine? You've got a broken leg. Okay, well, just watch the Spurs semi-final from 1996. You're sorted.
You should feel much better. And if that doesn't work, I'll just use ChatGPT and find out what your problem is. I mean, that's all doctors do these days, isn't it, Joe?
Sure. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. I think it's really cool. I think it's really cool the way that they've applied what they do for the other escape rooms and detective type stories in a medical context. Because, as you said, I work in health and I have a healthy true crime addiction. I consume a lot of true crime media. And I've often thought that things that make me good at my job will also make me good as a detective. And so they've applied that really well in the way that you've described it. It sounds like the way that you would kind of try and discover what's happening for a particular patient. So yeah, it sounds real. I'm so impressed that they thought to translate that into that thing.
Yeah. I'm keen to, I mean, it's obviously one of those ones where you're not going to play it multiple times. Once you've played the case, you've understood what happened, and you're not going to go back. You already know all the answers. So, but there's no destruction involved. So you're not destroying cards, you're not putting stickers on things, you're not cutting stuff up. So in terms of once you've played the 4 cases, you could quite happily move that onto someone else, gift it to someone, and they could have the same experience without any problems whatsoever. It does do a bit of so when you finish each campaign or each scenario, there's like epilogue that says, did you identify this? Did you identify that? And the different things based on their importance are weighted differently in terms of a point score. So if you were the type of person that wants to try and achieve like a high score, you can try and make sure you uncover every piece of information. There was one person who I managed to save and got her healthy and back to where she was and perfect treatment. But when I read the epilogue, I was like, yeah, I didn't actually really understand why she was in the state that she was. Like I identified her symptoms and had treated them, got her to the point where she was healthy. But when I looked at the card and it said score points if you realise the reason she had these symptoms was because she had done this, 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 and this. And I was like,
interesting.
Yeah, no, I had no idea about that.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
In video games, when you become the hero, you can kind of mess with yourself a bit, right? You can like crash your car into a wall and it's funny, that kind of stuff. Can you just mix all those drugs together and go, let's see what happens?
It actually tells you, I don't know how bad it turns out when you get things wrong, but it actually says in the tutorial, if you do make mistakes, like if you did, and there's certain, I think they put certain things in there intentionally to be like, don't do
what I would do.
Well, I'm trying to explain how this happened without giving away like a spoiler, but there are certain drugs that you go, well, had you given them that drug, that would have had some bad consequences because you should have known X, Y, Z before you made a decision to treat them with that particular drug. So it's not just a matter of, oh, yeah, they've got a heart problem, give them the heart drug. Or you have to kind of read them all and go, okay, so which is the most appropriate? What does this situation demand in terms of what I should apply? And if you haven't got all the information, you might make the wrong decision and give them something that you probably shouldn't have given them. So the story unfolds in like a deck of cards. They're like, story cards. And depending on which route you take, you will draw different cards, however your story's routing. And some of them do have bad endings.
Oh, wow. Okay, fair play.
So it's a good one. If you're into that sort of mystery stuff and you like the idea of a different theme and that medical sort of theme, then I'd definitely say that you could check this out. It's not going to blow you away. It's not going to be anything revolutionary. It's not going to keep you engaged for weeks and months or whatever like that. You've probably got maybe 4 hours split up over 4 sessions, and that's it. It's a good fun game.
Cool.
So, 80, got anything else you want to bring up,
mate? Just one quick thing.
Well, I know you do because you've got a 30,000 word essay in the run sheet.
Yeah, that's how I roll. Look, my thing that I want to bring up is I'm actually in a 1v1 Barrage World Cup on BGA, and I've never done competitive kind of gaming or tournament style gaming. It's just not usually my thing. I'm not one of those people that really cares if I win or lose. I'm just in it for the fun. And I thought, you know what, I'll just give it a go. And I didn't even really understand the sign-up process, to be honest. I just clicked like join and nothing happened. And I just sat there and I never heard back. And then a month later, this tournament started kicking off and I'm in games after game after game. And I'm actually starting to care, like probably way more than I should. I think I'm getting a bit more competitive or a bit more concerned about losing. And the first game I played, I got obliterated by the person that's ranked like 13th in the world, and they are at the like top of the leaderboard of this league. And that definitely made me not feel great. I was like, man, I've played this game like easily. We're getting into the sort of 300 mark at the moment. Like, I mean, I've played it 28 times since Christmas, so that will give you a clue. Oh. So I feel like, oh man, that sucked. Like I thought I would do better. But I was lucky enough to talk to the person about it, and they gave me a bunch of pointers of what I did wrong. Because in a 2-player game, it becomes, and at that kind of caliber, it becomes incredibly chess-like. It becomes very different, a very different experience. And after that game, I didn't enjoy it. I was like, man, I was a bit disheartened about it, and like that sucks. And now I have this whole league that I'm in, and I'm not going to be one of those people that just goes, well, I didn't win that one, so I'm just going to fob all the games off and I don't care. I played the second game and I lost that one as well. And I was like, oh, this is really not going well.
Oh, dear.
But then I won 3 in a row and I kind of got to sort of the middle of the table and I was like, this is great. And then I actually played the person that was above me in the rankings. And that is when I really started to care, because I was like, this person is of an equal kind of caliber and knowledge as myself. So I should be
competitive.
I should be competitive in this game. And I was very worried about it. I definitely got nervous because I was like, oh man, like this is intense. And I started to feel the weight of the game on me because I actually started to care. I won the game. It was very close. There was only probably like 8 points in it. I think it was like 129 to 121. So it was a very close game. But yeah, I got to talk to the person afterwards and we got chatting about the game and different things that we like about it and stuff. So I've really enjoyed that. I've stressed out about it, but I've really enjoyed getting pointers and sharing ideas and theories and things. People have said like, this is where I went wrong. Like as in not me, as in them. They're telling me, look, I should never have done this. When this happened, you took the game and you took control of the game. And that happens in chess. Same thing. Someone makes one tiny mistake, then someone else can take control of that game. And then all of a sudden you're on the back foot. And that definitely has happened in a couple of these games. And I have enjoyed it. If I'm honest, I have enjoyed the experience. I don't think I would rush in to do it again. We're not finished yet. We've still got a few games to go, but it's been an experience and it's been interesting. And I have learned a lot. Like, I mean, not to go into the alls ins and outs of it, but in Barrage, when you take your first action, usually you're trying to build stuff on the board so you can start doing stuff. But in this 2-player, you are trying not to build first. You do not want to be the person that builds first, because someone, as soon as you build, they're going to build next to you or block you somehow or figure out a way to instantaneously mess with what you're trying to do. Be it build a conduit on the dam you've built or build a dam above where you've just put your conduit. So it becomes.
So what do? You just hold off and not build anything and just everyone. So it's kind of like that those cycle races where they hang up at the top of the velodrome and they don't want to go first and they just hang there. Everyone's just waiting for someone to go.
It happens. Yep. I've played the whole first round and gone, I'm taking a contract. And they've gone, I'm taking a contract. And I've gone, I'm taking a resource. Then they've gone, I'm going to just put 2 water drops in the headlands. And like, you're kind of holding off to that first build. It doesn't happen in every game, but it definitely happens in a lot of those games. And it's very interesting to see that, because 2v2 of MJ, 1v1, sorry, I've never tried that. I've never cared that much. Whereas in this, I'm actually caring and playing the game differently. So yeah, it was very interesting. It's definitely not for everybody. I can understand why competitive gaming and tournaments have a very different meta behind them, because this is a style that I've never thought of. Like in a 1v1 game with friends, whatever, I just go, I'm going to build here, I'm going to do this, because no one would just instantly screw up whatever I've done instantaneously on the first move. Like, bam, you do one thing, they just go, not happening. We're doing this. And they take you on a different path instantly. This is because I think it's less personal online. It's very cutthroat.
Oh, definitely.
I think that in a 1v1 live competitive game, I think the same things would happen. I think the same moves would happen. They wouldn't go, you know what, I'll just build over here and do my own thing. They'd just instantly mess with you because they can. So, yeah, I've found it very interesting. So, yeah.
You ever played a board game like in a competition, Joe? I know you've played competitively because like you love that shit, but have you ever played in a competition?
I'm actually, even though I love competitive games and games with a lot of conflict, I'm actually not that competitive. And even in my career, like I've never really cared about being as good or better than someone else, and that's the same for board games. So I think that's why I've been kind of repelled by tournaments or board game, like competitive board game scenes, for example. But I have played root tournaments, and yeah. So we can talk about it a bit later. Spoiler for the question of the pod, but it does completely change the way you think about the game, the way you play the game, and when you're playing with really experienced players, it's such a different. I would say it's the same for any board game, but the game is so different, the meta is so different, the way that you predict what people are going to do is really different. So, yeah, props to you, Adi, for giving it a go, because you're someone who says that you don't like that. I'm just really impressed.
Yeah.
It's
just my favorite game. So I was like, well, this will give me lots of games because it's on tap. Like I'm in. So yeah, I thought I'd give it a go.
How'd you hear about it?
It was just an ad on BGA. I went on BGA one day and it came up with like some sort of tournament button. I clicked it to see what was available, and a Barrage 1v1 was in that list. And I was like, well, let's just try. And then I clicked the join, and then heard nothing. And I don't know BGA very well. So I just thought, maybe it didn't work. Maybe I'm in. Who knows? And then I started getting a notification being like, your game's ready. Here you go. And then, I was in a few days after. So
cool. Yeah. How about you, Mitch? Have you done any board game tournaments, competitions?
No, I'm not really into like competition board games. I'm not even in competitive board games because I always lose. So even when I'm being competitive, I'm very rarely competitive.
Yeah.
You won The King is Dead, didn't you, when we played that?
Yeah, because
by accident.
I just was like, I'm just going to try and throw everyone into French disarray and cause trouble everywhere.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But it worked.
Well, yeah, I didn't end up winning. I think Tom won on a tie break. But
okay.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
But let's not talk about that. Edit that out.
About that. Edit that out. I thought you won. My bad. Yeah, sorry about that.
No, I did win. I won Pax Premier by default because Damo and Jules were going at each other, and I didn't know what I was doing. But that was, it is what it is.
Yeah, cool.
No, I get my competitive feel out of playing basketball, and for anyone who's ever played with me, they know that I take that pretty seriously. So it's about as enough serious as I need in my life.
Fair play.
So
before we move on to sizzles,
no,
can I just ask one quick thing?
No.
Okay.
Go on. What's your one quick thing you want to ask?
When I went to clean up my house the other day, 2 weeks after everybody had left,
Oh, God.
somebody had, when they draw on the dirty window with a finger, someone had left a phallic symbol on my bedroom window. Now, all evidence points to Tom because he was on the phone a lot in the area. I don't have CCTV or anything, but we're all just blaming Harry because it's more fun.
When you were sending accusations through the group chat, I was like searching for an I am Spartacus gift to be like, I am Spartacus, so no one would get the blame.
Yeah.
No, it did make me laugh a lot.
It's fun.
Yeah. So, you sure it just wasn't MJ? Do you want a bit of interior decorating?
Nah. She would have done a whole body. So,
well, like you said, it's the gift that keeps on giving.
It is. Like, it's crazy. We stopped chatting in that chat group 2 weeks ago, and then I walked past my bedroom window and went, who did that? And then instantly started throwing accusations back in that chat, and that chat went back up to full life again. So, yeah, it's been great fun. So, yeah, thank you very much for anyone that made the journey interstate and, came up. It was really appreciated. It was very fun. So
cool. So are you done now?
I am done.
Can I throw to Joe now?
You can.
Okay, Joe. Lights on you, bro. Spotlight. Take it away.
So what I wanted to sizzle was Art Society. So this is a game that I got to teach at the Brisbane Board Game Day to a few of the community members. And I've played it a few times since I got it. I can't remember. Oh, that's right. I got it from Dean at Advent. That's where I got it from.
Okay.
But I think it's pretty hard to get at the moment. It's a polyomino auction game, and the art style is really nice and it draws you in. I really like it. It's very quirky. The theme of the game is that you're playing as art curators and you're creating a wall of art in your house, and you are trying to bid amongst all these other art curators to get the best artwork and produce the best wall of art in your house or in your estate, for example. The way that you do that is there are different sized polyomino tiles. They're all square, obviously for paintings, but some of them will be 2 squares in height, for example. Some of them might be a 3x4 square, so that range in different sizes, and they then are worth different values in terms of point scoring at the end of the game. What happens is one person will be the art auctioneer, and so they get to choose which paintings are going to be bid on in terms of size. And then each painting comes in one of 4 different styles. So there's green, red, blue, yellow. Corresponds to like landscapes, architecture, still life, and portraits, for example. You'll win at the end of the game based on how much each type is valued. So green paintings, red paintings, yellow paintings, blue paintings, for example. You, in the auction, will bid amongst the 4 of you once the paintings have been put out, and there will always be number of paintings equal to player count plus 1. So there's always going to be 1 painting left over at the end. And so you bid using these really cool little paddles. You'll have a set of cards that are in the shape of bidding paddles, numbered from 1 to 20, and they're the only cards you'll have in the game. So if you use your 20, for example, then that's it. You've used it, and everyone will know there's no way that you can have a 20 for the rest of the game. And so you bid, so you will put your bid down, face down, then everyone reveals at the same time, and then you go in order of highest to lowest bid in terms of choosing your paintings. And then you'll be choosing the paintings based on size and colour. There's a few interesting placement rules in terms of paintings of the same colour can't be next to each other or they won't score. So if you have a yellow painting orthogonally adjacent to a yellow painting, then those paintings won't score at the end of the game. So they've got that to contend with. But also the paintings have different types of frames. So if the frame is different, you want to put those together because they get you bonuses to help you fill in the cracks. So that's how you get the 1 square sized tiles, for example. The thing that I think is really satisfying and really interesting in this game is the way the paintings are scored are dependent on what paintings aren't being picked up. So like I said, the number of paintings you bid on is plus 1 of player count. So that whatever painting type is left over, it goes up by that many points in terms of its value towards the end of the game. So if a red size 6 painting is left over at the end of the bidding phase, then the red marker goes up and the value of the red tiles go up by 6 points in that game. And so you'll be as you're choosing what to take, you'll be like, oh, I really want to take this. You might bid low so that you have the final say in terms of what painting is going to go increase, what painting type is going to increase in value. And I thought that mechanic was really interesting. And what happens is where the painting markers on the score track correspond to at the end of the game will then create a multiplier for those painting types at the end of the game. So if the blue paintings are at the highest on the track, then they're worth 5 points each. Each blue painting is worth 5 points on your wall. And then the second one, I think, is 4, 3, and then 2 points. And so you've kind of got this push and pull of, I want to get the painting type that I want so that I make sure that I try and get as many points as I can, but I also want to manipulate it so the most paintings I have are the ones going to be worth most at the end of the game.
And by taking those paintings, it's reducing the chance of it getting increasing value. So
yeah, correct. Yeah,
working against itself.
Yeah. So what are you going to put down? So really, really enjoy that game. That scoring mechanic I thought was very interesting. The thing I really liked is that in the bidding, if you ever have when you're bidding, you're placing your cards down in front of you in a pile on top of each other. And so if you ever have a situation where two players play the same number, the tiebreak is you then remove that the card you just played, and it's the card you played before that is then the tiebreak between you. So it's kind of this you've got these things in a very simple looking game. You've got all these things to think about as you're playing it, and yeah, really fun. Really enjoyed it, and it's just so charming. Highly recommend.
Yeah, I think you played it a couple of times over the weekend, right?
Yeah,
because I heard a lot of people talking about it and how much fun they had.
Yeah.
And it sounds, maybe I'm wrong, but it sounds a little bit like a Barron Park with like taken to a whole new level with a bit more complexity added in.
Some would say Barron Park on steroids, maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, actually, that's pretty apt. It's a pretty apt comparison.
Yeah, right.
If you added like Barron Park with auctioning, and
bit more complexity.
100%. That is
cool.
Art Society.
Art Society. All right. So, 80, do you have a sizzle you'd like to talk about this week?
I do, definitely. It's actually going to be Age of Steam. I'll just get that straight out of the gate. I can tell you now, this is Martin Wallace's best game.
That's a big call.
I have played this game now enough to understand not all of the intricacies, but a lot of them.
Better than Brass.
Yes. For me, it is. And like, I know that I'm not like, I say that I'm not a trained person, but I've got lots of train games now by accident. Like I played 118XX.
Yeah, he slipped over and bought all these train games.
Well, I bought. This is. I'm going to tell you right now. I bought like 4 18XX games after only playing one, and I've played a few of them now, and they're great, but they're a very different beast compared to Age of Steam. It's not at all the same kind of game, and I know Mitch can attest to that a bit because he also played it. Have you played this before, Joe, as well? Age of Steam?
Yeah, loved it. Such a good game.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And, like as a prime example, how I slipped, I bought this game, loved it, played one game of it with Finn at 2-player, loved it, just playing it with just me and him, and then was, when you're not supposed to eat junk food, so you're like, I won't go in the drive-thru, I'll just drive past. Then you're like, I'll just go in and I'll just get a Coke. Like, that's fine. And then you've got like a 12 box of nuggets and a milkshake and all the stuff that you're not supposed to have. Well, I accidentally walked into More Than Meeples just to have a look, and then I bought a big box of maps because I was like, I'm here, I might as well get it. So I ended up buying more maps because why not? It's worth having. And I really appreciated the extra maps. They are fantastic and interesting and different. They add elements that thematically make sense in the time periods that they're set in, because they're set in all different time periods. Dev said it before, there's hundreds of maps. You can get them online, you can download them, you can print them. There's even steampunk maps, like in alternative world maps, which is
Age of Steampunk.
Cool. Age of Steampunk, baby. That's it.
TM.
That's right. Oh, that's the way. And basically, it's just it's like Brass. It's the same kind of thing, right? That has that simple rule book of like 10 pages or whatever, but so much depth in that game. And this has the same thing. This has like a 9-10 page rule book, and just the amount of depth that you get from the core game is phenomenal. But with the extra maps, you get even more depth and difference, like a point of difference from each map. I know that Def has said it before. There's a map where you actually follow, I think, the funeral train of Abraham Lincoln as it travels around America, taking his body around to show it to the country. And there's a thematic tie to the railway network that you're building on that map, right? So, it's got really cool stuff in it. So the maps alone are interesting enough. But the game is brilliant. And I played it with Finn at 2-player mainly because it takes out all of the bidding mechanics, right? So you don't do the bidding, which is great, because if you had the bidding in it, it does add a level of complexity to the game. And the 2-player maps work really well without the bidding mechanic. Essentially, you just choose an advanced action and away you go. And you build track, lay track, deliver goods, just like in the other game. But for those who haven't played it at 2 and are concerned that it isn't as interesting, it definitely is, but it's an interesting in a different way. It adds a layer of tightness to where you can and can't build, which in a 6-player game, it does happen, but just not in the same way. It's like the chess-like thing. Whenever you play a 2-player game and it's head-to-head, it always has that element of push and pull between the 2 players. And I feel that the maps that they provide for 2 players, even though you don't have the bidding mechanic to take your actions, it makes up for it in spades with the lack of flexibility on the maps. But the way Age of Steam actually works essentially is there's 10 turns, 10 action phases that happen, like a sequence of play. You issue shares at the start of the game. Everybody has 2 shares and everyone gets paid $10, and you can use that to build track and bid on essentially the action that you will increase its ability for at the start of certain phases of the game. Then you just determine the player order, which basically is a bidding mechanic. You bid, and whoever bids on it, if you win, you have to pay the full amount that's bid. Me and Mitch went head-to-head in our game. He cut me out of that game, bro. So bad. I only had 13 and you had 14. And I was like, I don't think he'll go all the way. And I tell you what, if I had won, I had such a great setup to play. Yeah. But I knew that you wanted the urbanized action. And I was like, if I bid high, hopefully he'll just go, this guy's lunatic. Like, he might leave it alone. And when I went like 10, you went 12, I was like, oh dear, this is going all the way.
I turned to Def and I went, I have to win this, don't I? And he went, he didn't even say anything. He just nodded and went, yes. And I went,
I knew it.
I'm all in then. I
knew it. And yeah, thankfully, even though I lost it, poor Def had to step in because I had to go put the briskets and stuff in the smoker. But yeah, that bidding, that's just the start. Like, you're just bidding for the action that you're going to get. Like,
but it is very important. It is
100%. It is. It is an important part of the game. It's not in a 2-player game, but it still is a different game with it, and it's a much more interesting game with it. But you need that layer of interest, otherwise the maps are too sparse and too big at 6 players. So you could just build anywhere. You need that bidding in there to make it more cutthroat and aggressive, and that's great. So you do that bidding in sequence, and essentially, if you're the lead bidder, you pay the full amount. In a maximum player count game, you pay the $14, then you get to choose what action you want, and then it rounds down, and basically second and third I think pay half, or second pays half, and then third, fourth, fifth don't have to pay or pay. I can't remember how that works in a 6-player, but they don't pay anything, right?
Yeah, the first 2 or 3 don't pay anything. Yeah,
and the last player goes last. And yeah, that's basically just for that. Then you get to select the actions, which is great. Then you just build track. You're just building track on a map, hexagon map, city to city. You have to end the track in a city. If you don't, you have to complete that track on your next turn. And tracks cost money, and money is everything in this game because money is so tight, it's ridiculous. And once you complete that track, you put one of your colored markers on it to denote it's yours, so that when goods travel from town to town, you get income depending on which tracks they go through. Now, on my turn, when I do eventually get to move goods around the map, I can put it on anyone's track, but I will be giving them income. And sometimes that's to my benefit, and sometimes it's just not. So yeah, that is a very interesting part of the game in itself as well. Then you collect the income that you've made that round. Then you have to pay expenses, which is just brutal. Depending on how fast your train moves and how many shares you've taken is how much you have to pay back to the bank at the end of the round, which is just a crippling part of the game, which is also incredibly interesting. And then you just basically add more goods to the map through a mechanic of rolling some dice, which denotes where the extra goods get placed. And then you just advance the turn marker and away you go. And that's pretty much the entire game. And you just rinse and repeat it. It is brutally tight, interesting, fun, not super complex, but can be cutthroat, but can also not be. Like, it just depends.
Yeah.
So,
It's funny you should say that, because I've always been pretty open about saying I'm not a huge fan of tight games, because I find that I'm not smart enough to get myself out of trouble if I make a wrong decision and things get too tight. I didn't feel like Age of Steam was the tightest game I've played. I think there's other tighter games out there. I still felt like no matter what happened, I still felt like I had enough agency over my own decisions that even if I made a bad choice, I still had other choices that I could make that would still be satisfying and feel like I was still participating and playing the game, even if I was doing so inefficiently or poorly. I definitely think it's the type of game that benefits from the more time you play it. Like there was it, and it's just in terms of seeing, for me anyway, seeing the map holistically. I know there was a couple of times, or one specific time, where you and I, 80, were very sort of close to each other, and I'd sort of set up what I wanted to do and thinking, yeah, I'll do this and then I'll do that and then I'll follow this down here and everything will be grand. And then the next turn, I was planning on doing it my next turn or maybe the next turn after that. And in that same turn after I'd taken my turn, you just did exactly what I wanted to do and took all my pieces anyway, right? Yeah. And I never saw it coming. Now, that's partially probably because I'm not great at playing the game, but also because I didn't have that foresight. I didn't realize that something was going to happen. So. Yeah. And that's always going to happen to sort of new players. But I think even as someone who played the game and, I had a higher expectation that it was going to be a lot heavier than it was. I went to the game day, to the game weekend, and I actually said to Def, if I do nothing else this weekend, I need you to teach me Age of Steam, because everyone talks about it, everyone says how great it is, and I want to learn from the best, right? And so obviously he did that. I was thinking I was going to need the super teaching powers of Def to get me through it, but it's not that bad in terms of the complexity in that. So I would advise anyone, if you're staying away from it because you think 18xx train games, heavy, complex math, shares. Oh my god, I don't want a part of that. It's not that bad. Check it out. Have a go.
The scoring is very simple at the end of the game. Like, it's so simple. It's really easy. Finn does all our scoring for us. So yeah. And he really enjoys the game, and we've played a multiple of maps. We've now played it 3-player with that bidding mechanic, and that is brutal because he's just an 8-year-old that doesn't care about how much he spends to bid. So he's just going in. He won't let me get first, ever. And then he's not silly. He'll look at the map and look at the game, and then he'll figure out, well, Dad actually needs this. I don't need this now, but I might just take it now to stop him and slow him down. Even though it's not my best action, it's better for me to have this now than to him have it now. So it's not the best optimal move for me now, but this will slow Dad down enough to make it a nuisance. And it's painful, but it's good. Like it's great. And it's funny as well. I have a little video of him, and he's sitting there and he's looking at the map and he's like, I'm gonna, and he's trying to figure it out. And he's doing that thing that all gamers do, like stall for time. But stalling, like just leave me alone. I'm going to figure it out. And then he turns around and goes, if I build on the mountains, is it $5? Because we're playing on a different map where it was more expensive. And I was like, yes. And he's like, Jesus. It's like, that's so expensive. I was like, yeah, it is. And he's like, man, that's hard. And yeah, it's just, it's not a hard game to play. It is a hard game to be exceptionally good at. But I will say that just like any of these games, if you take big risks, there can be big rewards, but there can also be big losses. You can just lose yourself out of a game by going head to head with Mitch, coming in second, having to still pay all your money, and then going, sorry, I got to go do the brisket. Def, step in, off you trot. So yeah, that's exciting. Do you know what I mean? Like that's an exciting element to a train game, which could be quite bland without. So yeah.
So you learn one thing at least, though, right? So when you mess with the bull.
That's right. Have an extra dollar more than he does. Otherwise, he's just going to go all the way and bankrupt both of us. So, yeah.
I think, what you've said is right about Age of Steam. I think it's got one of those things where if you look at the board or if you look at the box, you'd assume it's going to be a really dry train game, but it is really interactive. It does have that element of, I'm not going to do the optimal move because I need to stop someone else. So I need to do the suboptimal moves so that they don't get an optimal move. I think that's why I enjoyed it so much. I think it's important for posterity that everyone knows that I blitzed Jules at this game when we played it.
Amazing. Yeah. That's the most important.
And that might have been the most important thing you've said on the podcast today.
Probably the whole time I've been on, but anyway.
Well, maybe. All right. So that's Age of Steam by Martin Wallace. Cool. Well, that leaves me just to round out the trio with my sizzle. I couldn't go another episode without bringing up our friends from Motor City Gameworks, who have just recently released their latest loaded roll and write, and that is French Quarter. So another load and roll and write designed by Matt Riddle, Ben Pinchback, and Adam Hill. And the French Quarter is set in New Orleans, where you're essentially traveling around the city, trying to enjoy your parties and build up your best score by experiencing as much of the city has to offer in all the different different entertainment options that are available in the city. The way that translates to a roll and write is that you have a number of different modes of transport in a series of decks of cards that are turned over. So it's almost like a flip and roll and write this time around. You then roll a series of coloured dice that then pair up with those modes of transport, and then you draft which one of those you're going to choose each turn. Based on what you choose, the different modes of transport will move you different spaces, different amounts of spaces. So you're working around a map on your left-hand sheet, which is a map of the city, and one move is one block, and you're trying to visit as many different locations as you can. When you visit a location, you write the number of the die that you rolled that came with that particular mode of transport into the location, onto the building, and you take the bonus that building offers, because each of the buildings have a different bonus on them. And the bonus will go onto the tracks that are on the right, which I'll explain in a minute. When you write your number on the building, any subsequent turns, spaces that are adjacent to that building, you can only use numbers that are plus or minus 1 from the number that's already on there. So you have this, you start creating this spatial puzzle where at the start you can put any numbers wherever you want, but if you've already put a number down, then you can only go to the building near that number if your roll of the dice is plus or minus 1 compared to the number that's already there. So if you have a 5, you can only either put a 6 or a 4 in. And pretty soon, you're kind of creating this almost a trap for yourself, because you might want to visit a particular building, or you might want to go to that particular street, or where that space is still available, but the die doesn't allow you to go there because it's either too high or too low. There are different ways to mitigate that, and there's abilities that come into play, but that becomes the sort of spatial puzzle on that left sheet.
So does a 6 and a 1 really suck, or does it loop round?
No, I believe it really sucks.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so when you're placing, but there, as I said, there are other things that you can use to balance that. You can also use the same. So you could put a 6 near a 6.
Right.
So you can use the same number. So you're trying to put those, like when I played, I was trying to put those like in a corner or somewhere so that it's, doesn't restrict too many sort of spaces near it, that sort of stuff. And then the right-hand sheet is a series of tracks, which is essentially your scoring sort of area. And each of the tracks that you then mark off as you go up they're each one of the streets, one of the main streets in New Orleans. And they're how you score. So at the end of the game, for every building you visited on each of those streets, you score that many points based on how far you've moved up that track. Say you've got loads of buildings that you visited on, what's the main street in New Orleans called? I'm trying to think. Can't remember off the top of my head.
Oh no, it's really upsetting me.
Let's call it Main Street. I can't remember. If you've got heaps of buildings on Main Street, then you want to try and increase that Main Street track to as far as it can, because when you start off, maybe you get 1 point for every building, but as you go along, there'll be a point where you tick off a box that will then double your points for that particular street, and then triple your points for how many buildings you have on that street. So if you notice that you've target, maybe a couple of streets, then you want to try and move up that track, Bourbon Street. Thanks, Adrian, looking it up. Of course, it is Bourbon Street. Then, yeah, that's how you increase the total multiplier of points you get for those streets, by increasing each of those tracks. Now, you can't, well, as far as I'm aware, I've not been able to increase all of those tracks the times that I've played. So you almost have to choose which ones you're going to go for. And each of those tracks will also unlock different bonuses and different powers. There's, I think, 3 from memory on each track, that as you go along, you also unlock 3 different powers that give you abilities to mitigate those dice rolls, or put a number or visit a location regardless of what your number is that you've got on your dice. Those types of things that, powers that you'll unlock. One thing that I found really interesting was I think it was Bourbon Street, which is the main party street. It will generate the most total points for you off that street, but each of the bonus powers that you unlock as you go up are mandatory and negative. So they actually take abilities away from you, because they give you, that track will give you the most points at the end of the game. So it's the one that's obviously the most enticing, because you're kind of well, that's where all the points are. But if I'm going to really utilize that, I'm going to have to do it with less resources and abilities than the other tracks, because it's obviously you got to pay more to get the more points. So it was a pretty cool kind of opposite dynamic there for that street. I thought it was interesting. So yeah, so essentially that's the game. It has the the combo style that you come to expect from ODC GameWorks. I really enjoyed it because it's different. It's not the same. We talk about Fleet as being the greatest, the granddaddy of them all, and the one that we probably like the most. And then Three Sisters is building on that again. Three Sisters has a lot of the same DNA as what Fleet does. I feel like French Quarter has done something fresh. It's used some of the stuff that, the tracks and some combos and those sorts of ideas, but it's implemented them in a way that's pretty much out of the box and that we haven't seen before, especially that whole spatial puzzle of visiting the different locations in New Orleans, trying to work out, well, how do I get onto that street? What numbers do I need to take? How many spaces do I need to move? So this means I'm going to have to take this particular form of transport if I can draft that next round, those sorts of things. It's a different puzzle to what we've seen the guys do before, and I really enjoy it. So I think I would put it up there maybe as my number 2 at the moment. Some of that might be Cult of the New. Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I played it with I've played it also with my wife and my daughter. They both enjoyed it as well. I think my wife beat me by 2 points or something, so she rubbed that in and made sure I was aware of that, which is all good. But yeah, it's a good one, I think. Have either of you guys had a chance to play this one yet, or seen it about?
No, not yet. I came across it when I was in the US, when it hadn't fulfilled in Australia yet. But I still have my copy of Motor City in Shrink. I haven't played it yet, and it's been a while since I played Three Sisters, so I thought I'd just wait. Yeah, but it sounds, the way you've described it, it sounds really interesting, really different to Three Sisters and Fleet. So I might have to definitely.
I love spatial puzzles. I just love that sort of stuff. And I think I would really like this. I'd like to try it. For sure. I don't know why. There's just something interesting about that part of a game where it's you're trying to figure it out constantly. It's never going to fit. It's never going to be perfect, but you just got to try your best to make it work. So yeah, I definitely want to give it a go. So
yeah, I enjoy it. I will say, if there is a little bit of a knock on it, because they've tried to, the intention is to keep the box sizes the same. So they've got all of these in the range so far. So the box size is the same, but the artwork comes across, because they filled the sheets of the maximum size they can be to fit in the box. Some of the iconography and stuff on those sheets is very small. It's very small, because you've got the big map that you're sort of fitting on that sort of half A4 size, A3 size, whatever it is, sheet. That it can get quite small. So I think they did release a digital version. I'm not sure if they did one bigger. They definitely did like what they're calling a high contrast version, so that you could see things a little bit better. But yeah, if you do struggle to see things usually, I would advise maybe getting the digital one and blowing it up to like A4 size or maybe something like that. You might find it a bit better. It is a little hard to read at times. I have eye troubles. I wear contact lenses permanently, so I don't have the best eyesight, and I didn't really have a problem with it. But I could understand how some people would. So just so that people know, if you do have trouble reading smaller print on cards or things in other games and you're aware of that, then you should just probably be aware of that as well, that some of the icons are a bit small.
Could use the zoom function.
Just the zoom function on your mobile.
Just put it close to your head. Just bring it closer to you.
What are you talking
about? But yeah, so that's my sizzle for the week. French Quarter by Motor City Gameworks. So if you're into roll and writes, I would say definitely check that one out.
Nice.
All right, so that brings us to the end of the discussion/sizzles, which means we just have to go through a couple of news and announcements we have on the agenda for this week. The first one being that the 4th Annual Board Game BBQ Awards are coming. Dan raised this last week and mentioned it for those who maybe missed last week's episode. So we'll be celebrating the best games of 2023. More news will be coming in the following weeks, but start thinking about who you'll nominate for your categories. The categories are Best Solo Game, Best Party Game, Best Light Game, Best Medium Weight Game, Best Heavy Game, Best Artwork, Best Expansion, and the Overall Game of the Year.
Nice.
Yeah, we also have the Patreon Trivia Night coming up, which will be on Friday, the 26th of April, hosted by Chris, who is one of our patrons from the Patreon community. So thank you, Chris, for doing that. So if you are interested in joining for the Patreon Trivia Night, that will be in Discord at 8:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time in the Patreon Lounge on Discord. So if you want to be part of that, you've got to sign up for Patreon and you've got to be a member on Discord before the 26th of April. So that should be heaps of fun. They're usually cracking. I did the one that Chris did. I don't know if it was the last one Chris did or the first one Chris did. I don't know. I can't remember how many he's done. But I have to say, I thought he did a bang-up job. I don't know if you guys attended.
Yeah, they're both, Dan and Chris do a great job. It's really fun. Yeah. We're very lucky just to sit there and do nothing. Like someone else is doing all the work and I'm just having a blast.
Exactly.
It's really nice. And it is great fun. And it's really cool to hang out with like lots of different members of the community. And yeah, even some of our American friends who are up at 5 a.m. and stuff, go to bed listening to it and stuff. Like
poor old Jameis. He comes along to everything and it's always like 4 a.m. I feel so bad for him.
He's always keen. He's a legend.
He's a legend.
Good.
All right, so that'll bring us to the end of our first segment. We will take a quick break and move on to Question of the Pod. If you're looking for a new board game, you need to check out adventgames.com.au. They have a great range of games, including pre-orders and hot new games. Anything you could be looking for will be there at Advent. Dean provides excellent customer service that is second to none, and he's always keen to support the Australian board game community through events, game days, and even through sponsoring a podcast. So head over to adventgames.com.au today. That's adventgames.com.au. Okay, question of the pod. So the last episode's question of the pod was, what's your favourite board game Easter eggs? Now, for those who are not sure what an Easter egg is, and Dana, an Easter egg is some kind of hidden nod to some sort of other pop culture reference of some sort, usually shown up in films, like where they might have a product in the background, or in board games it turns up usually as some sort of piece of artwork or
pop culture reference.
Yeah, I said that, didn't I?
I think so.
Yeah, thanks for reiterating what I already said. It's good.
Sorry, Dad.
So what have you guys? I mean, I'm not really good at this. I can't usually see the iconography that I'm supposed to see, let alone the ones that I'm not supposed to see. So, I very rarely pick up on these Easter eggs. But have you guys picked up on any?
I have a couple, actually. I had one today. I got to play Galactic Cruise. And for our English listeners out there, there is a Zig and Zag reference somewhere on the game. I won't spoil where, but if you were ever watching TV in the morning in the 90s, watching The Big Breakfast, Zig and Zag were puppets, kind of like they used to interview the famous people on the show in the bathtub or something. It's very strange. And there were two aliens. They
getting
were
worse and worse.
really annoying.
The longer you talk, the weirder it gets.
Yeah, it's very strange. Trust me. Just Google Zig and Zag, and I'm sure you'll have a great time. And the other one was one of the members. I think it might have been Marco. Might have pointed this out, and I've seen it before and completely forgotten about it. But Marty and Doc are on the Coloma board from Back to the Future 3.
Oh, really?
Oh, really?
Yes. So that's very cool.
That is
I
cool.
think that's sick. So
It is.
anything that gives me like
bust that out when I go off the show here. Yeah.
check it out. So it's
sure.
very cool.
I'm like you, Mitch. I'm oblivious. So unless someone points it out to me, like I think the first time I realized that something like that existed was with the Scythe board, and someone was like, "Oh, you should look, and you can find the little fairy tale kind of Easter eggs." And I'd have played that game heaps by that stage. I had no idea.
Yeah, I'm completely, absolutely like you, oblivious, but I'm not so oblivious that I don't know what an Easter egg is.
True.
Yeah.
True.
So how about we read out some of the responses we had from the community, because they're the real interesting ones. So Adrian, you want to read a few out from Instagram?
Anglefish on Instagram said Familiar from 2010 by Freeman and Freeze has dozens of them. All the cards form one big image, and there are caricatures of various game designers, reviewers, people in the industry, etc., etc. Fun just to hunt through and see which ones you can find. Board Game Beacon, I like Santa Claus on the Scythe board. I have never seen the Santa Claus on the Scythe board, so it must be somewhere.
Right.
No.
Wouldn't be surprised. So from Facebook, we had Kim Breback say that the Lone Wolf and Cub is pictured in Land vs. Sea, and he talked about how that story was the inspiration from The Mandalorian, which is very cool. Tara Clapperton said that she likes the pictures of board games on the cards and creature comforts, especially fossils. And then Julian Pombo showed us a picture of himself cycling, which I think appears in his game Pampero, which is also really cool. From X, formerly Twitter, Clint Warren Davey said that on some of the room tiles in Agricola, there's a little picture of a table with a game of Agricola set up, almost like an Agricola Inception over time, and they thought it was very cute. Barney Willis said that the Obra Dinn is in John Company and that Flashman is in Pax Pamir. The Obra Dinn's a ship in John Company, which I assume is a nod to the video game, or the video game's a nod to a famous ship, which is the Obra Dinn. I actually don't know. But then Flashman, actually this comment made me go on a Wikipedia hole, because Flashman is one of the best cards in Pax Pamir, and apparently is a fictional character, and very cool.
Cool. And in Discord, Stuz said the picture of Tom Hiddleston in Viticulture. Now, is that Tom Hiddleston?
It looks like
Can we confirm? It looks like it,
doesn't it?
Like it.
It looks and he's got a very distinct look. Do you know what I mean? So
I think if Jamie's listening, he needs to reach out and tell us if that's Tom Hiddleston.
So we're never going to get reached out, and he's never going to tell
Probably
us.
Probably not. But you email him every now and again. You could flick him an email and say...
We trade cookie recipes, so it's all good. Maybe I'll ask him next time. And Stacey in Discord said that her favorite is the minuscule Gandalf, R2-D2, and C-3PO on a couple of the tapestry tiles. So
you're a tapestry guy, Adrian. Have you seen that before?
Yeah, have you?
I've seen the R2-D2 and C-3PO, because I believe it's like when they're out in the desert together and it's that sort of silhouette of behind them. I believe so, but I cannot say I've never seen the Gandalf. So, yeah.
Fair enough. Alrighty, so there are all the responses, some good responses there. I think if it had been us to up us, it would have been very bland, because I don't know hardly any.
Yeah.
I gave you homework. You need to open Coloma, so mine's good.
I don't know if one would have cut it though. So thankfully for the community came through with that one and gave us a few more. So moving on to this week's question of the pod. Now this question's kind of spawned out of Adrian getting his butt handed to him in the 1v1 barrage tournament. And the question is, does playing in board game competitions change your enjoyment or your experience for that game? And I'm going to be the moderator on this one because, as I said, I've never played a board game tournament or competition. So I'm going to throw it over to you guys to say, how does it change your experience or your enjoyment of the game?
I think it's one of those things where I guess we kind of Root's my number one game. It's easily the game I played the most of. Probably similar for, or definitely the same for you, Adrian. Barrage being something that you've played so much.
Yeah,
I think it's only really feasible for a game that you know really well and that you want to play in depth. The way that I play games, I love learning new games. I love kind of grokking those mechanics and getting your head around that, and that's why I'm just playing new games all the time. So I think it doesn't really translate to then getting into the competitive scene for any particular board games. But like we kind of alluded to in the past discussion, it completely changes the way you play the game. It changes the way you think about the mechanics of the game. And the thing I love about Root, and the reason why I really enjoyed the Root tournaments I played in, is that it's not just what's happening on the board, it's also playing the people that are around the table as well. So it's almost like poker in some ways, where I guess it's harder at a BGA because you don't get that similar experience, Adrian. But in person, at those Root tournaments, you're playing the people and you're trying to like pit them against each other so they don't focus on you, so that then you can win. So yeah, I think it's just a really great way to get a very in-depth view of a game that maybe you wouldn't get just from playing at board game days or with friends.
But Root leans into that. Like that's that style of game. That's that whole, a lot of mind games to a degree. You have to try and pivot other players to either second guess themselves or make mistakes when you need them to. Do you know what I mean? You need them to look at other options, not just attack you, not shut you down necessarily, and look at different ways. Whereas I feel like a Euro game, it's more mechanical. Like there is no negotiation. Like in a 4-player game of Barrage, maybe you could at the table convince another player to do something else, but it just doesn't seem to happen as much in that sort of space.
I disagree. What you described, that kind of like tension of who's going to build the building first, or you being like, even for example, Age of Steam, I'm going to take that thing so that someone doesn't get that benefit. And you might, I assume you might do the same in Barrage, where you think, well, that thing is going to be really good for that person. I need to take it away from them, not having played it. So I think sure, Root magnifies that. But I think I would assume in Euros, you're still trying to guess what the other person is doing
100%.
And try and mitigate that in some way. So it's not just the pure.
But I've never sort of sat at a table and someone goes, "Oh, you better run your water now, otherwise this is going to happen." Like, I don't know, it just doesn't. It doesn't happen.
Is that more of a product of the game and the competition, or is it more a product of just the people you're playing with?
Yeah,
it's
like
probably,
if you have different personalities, they might be like, knowing me, I'd probably be at you the whole time. Oh, screw him over, do this, do that.
Yeah, it's probably a mixture of both, because I haven't played it at the table in a competitive environment, so I don't really know what would happen. Like I might try and convince other players to do other things. It is an area control game to a degree, but it's not the be all and end all. It's not like a game like Root. Yeah, just from my own experience so far, like I said earlier, I have enjoyed the competition, even though the pressure and the stress level is amplified, even though it's not real. Do you know what I mean? It's not like I'm going to win the World Cup and this is like going to win millions or whatever. It's just that added element and that added layer of the pressure, even though it's not. It's sort of a facade of pressure in a way, but it's still added. It never came into it until I played the player that was one position above me, because then I was like, this is an important game. I want to win this. And I really enjoyed that level of competitiveness and playing with someone that's at my level. And like I said, like I would expect that, I mean, I know it for a fact, these people that go to these chess tournaments and stuff, they all have strategies and names for plays and all this stuff, and they all discuss and debate and all this other kind of stuff. And that happened in my barrage game. I got my butt handed to me, and the player was like, this point here was where you went wrong, and you should have done this, and this might have helped you out. And we discussed it for a good 15 or 20 minutes afterwards. And I really enjoyed and appreciated the debrief. I didn't feel like that guy was being a fool or trying to big note himself. We just started discussing the game, and I said, where do you think I went wrong? And then he explained it, and we went through it. And I didn't feel inferior in any way. I felt like I was learning, and that's what those competitive games add. They add a layer of like a learning methodology that I never would have got playing it at the table with players that are maybe not that same experience level, but also not that keen to be that competitive. So.
Do you think what we're talking about here is the delineation, the line between where we cross from game into sport? Do you see what I mean? I mean, you can play chess as a game, and it'd be quite social, and maybe not too serious or whatever. But when you start talking about plays and strategies and planning, and it does really feel more the language and the way that we're talking about it does sound more like a sport than a game, than a recreation type thing. You know what I mean?
And I predict, so what a lot of our community might say is that it might then suck the fun of, if you're not a sports person, if you don't enjoy that mastery element of it, that I'm going to be as good as I can at this thing, then it might suck all the fun out of the game for you potentially.
I can see that, but I think on some level you get the enjoyment from a different avenue. You get the enjoyment from, I mean, it's not everyone's cup of tea, just like board games aren't everyone's cup of tea, but you get the enjoyment from being under the pressure and the experience of winning a game against someone that is at the same level as you. There is an element of enjoyment out of winning. We play these games to win. Even if you're not competitive, you're not playing to lose. No matter what, you don't play to lose, you play to win. And I feel that enjoyment pivots to being not just fun, it's the fact that you're matched up against someone that is of your caliber, and it's that added pressure of pulling off a win or pulling off a sick move. Even if you don't win, you might pull off an action or a turn in that game that you've never pulled off before, and you're like, wow, I'm going to try that again. Just like in chess, those key moves that you record and play, and you go, that's play, zebra, and that's when I do this, this, and this. You have these plays where you're going to set up parts of the game, and then you go, boom, this is where I'm going to turn it on, and I know exactly what I'm doing. And I think you get the enjoyment out of gaining the knowledge. It's a different style. And I never in my wildest dreams would have thought I would talk like this in 2 years ago. Like, no way. But it's just a different form of enjoyment and a different form of fun.
Yeah, so I was gonna say the same thing before you said it, Adrian. I think it's different, and you're right. That rush that you feel, the 2 root tournaments I've played in, I managed to win, and that rush when you're like, I've got it. I've got the things I need to get me the points that are going to win the game. That you just feel this like rush of energy that is so satisfying, and it's so different to when you're playing just with family or friends around the table.
Yep, fair enough. All right, but all of that doesn't matter, because what is important is what our community have to say about it. So everyone needs to go out there, jump onto Facebook or Discord or X, formerly known as Twitter, or Instagram, whichever platform is your preferred. Jump on there and let us know what you think about board game competitions, whether you've been in one, whether you haven't. If you haven't been in one, why do you avoid them? All that sort of thing. So get on there and participate. And if we think you've got something interesting to say, we'll read it out on the pod next week. So before we move on to our next segment, we just wanted to quickly shout out to all of our Patreon supporters who we shout out to every week, because they are amazing. They're a great bunch of people, and we thank you all so much for the contributions that you make each and every week to us. We'd also like to say that if you want to support the show but you don't want to be a Patreon, that's completely fine. You can support us in other ways, namely jumping onto our Facebook community, the Board Game BBQ community, or into our Discord server, or simply just by telling your friends and family and anyone you talk to about how great this hobby is, how they should get into board gaming, and how they should listen to the podcast because it's a lot of fun and you can enjoy yourself. Adrian, you've got an idea about how people can support us.
We are almost at 100 5-star ratings on Spotify. If we could get to 100,
Wow.
that really adjusts our algorithms and stuff. So please, I know how many people listen to this show on Spotify. It's not 100. So please, if you could just push the 5 stars, we would really appreciate that.
Yeah, I think we've covered off pretty much all the places that you can follow us on X, on Twitter, on the Facebook community. And if you enjoy just talking about board games and being with a bunch of people who enjoy the hobby, I personally don't think there's a better place. It's a great community to be involved in, and I thank all of you for that. So thank you. All right, moving on to our next segment, Swear an Oath. Okay, the Swear an Oath segment. So let's have a look where we are at. If I look at the run sheet, Adrian has finally filled out the run sheet. It was blank for the longest time. So it was...
You just weren't looking properly.
I was starting
Been
to
there
worry
the whole
a bit.
time.
Yeah, sure it is. Sure it is. Let's leave the mystery and Adrian till the end. Let's go over to Joe. How'd you go with your oath, Joe?
Yeah, so I still have my ongoing oaths of playing Ticket to Ride Legacy with my husband. It's just had cycling daycare viruses running through the house, so we haven't had the energy to get that to the table yet. And I've been wanting to play Barcelona as well, which I'm planning to get played this week, so I will get it done. Looking forward to it. My third oath from last time I did do, so Too Many Bones Unbreakable, got to play over the Easter weekend before we started getting sick. And as a Too Many Bones lover, it was really fun. Really enjoyed it. I played the first boss, which was Rock and Roll. The two new Gearlocks, really fun. The time manipulation one, whose name is Figment.
Yep.
And then the wind-powered Gearlock, Gale. Yeah, super fun. Really enjoyed it. I hadn't actually realized that there were the rock and lava spaces and that the mat actually had chips as well until I started to set it up. And even that really just freshened up the gameplay of Too Many Bones. I've played a lot of the base game. I've played a lot of the water one, whatever that's called, off the top of my head. Undertow. I played through that whole campaign as well with all the baddies from that. And yeah, it just really refreshed it and I found it really enjoyable. And I'm really keen to get the rest of it done as well.
Are you moving on to the Trove chest anytime soon, Joe?
Oh, I've got the Trove
have you?
chest, mate.
Oh.
It's in the Calyx.
Yes.
I've got it.
Beautiful.
I've got all the content. I just need to actually play it. Yeah, it's
crazy.
So good. So that's done. That's a tick. My new oath is going to be. We've been lucky enough to get a prototype of a game named Triumph. So that's by publisher Phalanx, designed by Raymond de Maria. And so,
is that about the insult comic dog from the Conan O'Brien show?
Triumph. What was his name? Triumph the
insult comic dog.
Was that his name?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
A kid.
I have to edit that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No. Okay.
No, it's about, of course, the Roman Empire, and you're trying to lead Rome to greatness. I don't know a lot about it. It looks like an area control game, so I'm sure it's right up my alley. There's a card-based element to it as well. I'm very keen to get it to the table and give it a go and try and find someone who's willing to knock heads with me.
Cool. I nominate Jules.
Yeah, if only he was in Melbourne. Too sad. Yeah, so sad.
We'll fly him down.
Oh, yeah,
just so he can get beat by you.
Yeah, great. That'd be great.
80. Well, actually, we'll leave you. I'm going next. It's me. Mine's going to be quick because my oath from last time was to play French Quarter, which I think we all know that I did since I sizzled it today. It was fantastic. And my next oath is going to be to play a game called Endurance, which I'm going to hold up for the guys so they can see it now, which is... yes. It's. Do you know about it?
I think so.
So it was loaned to me by Lauren, and it's a solo tabletop RPG game. So, and I've heard Lauren speaks very highly of it, and I think I saw it when it was on Kickstarter, but was kind of like, oh, I'm not sure. So the fact that she's willing to loan it to me, I'm super appreciative of that, and I'm going to give it a crack and see how endurance goes.
Cool.
So that's me done. Righto, 80. Here we go.
Mine was to play Anunnaki, which I've done multiple times. Played it a couple of times solo, played it 3-player and 4-player. It's great.
That was the one that Haig beat you at every time, right?
Yeah, it's so bad. Like, he had to apologize for smashing us, and he won again, of course. And yeah, he's just a genius at that sort of stuff, which is hard to play against. So you end up it's a 4X game, right? So I should have learned my lesson, and we should have been aggressive towards him and stopped him. But because it's so much Euro mechanics behind it, you kind of get stuck in that Euro mindset of doing contracts and other things. But yeah, it's a fantastic game. Some of the best action selection that I've ever played with. But it just it's hard to get to the table. Like, I can't play it with Finn. It's too complex. It's not gonna hold his attention span. So yeah, I couldn't keep playing it until I get to play it with more adults. And I was luckily, for my new oath, I was imported a game by Joe himself. He picked up Salt and Sea for me, which is
you just said that like salt and sea. It's not salt and sea, is it?
Salt and Sea. So it's like a place. But it's, I just, my Pommy accent, Salt and Sea, salt and chips. Like, it's just, it's a very interesting theme. I have played half a game. Me and MJ went through the rules and played it, and then life got in the way, but I'm definitely going to retable it. But it is a heavy game for the box size. Like, and it doesn't lie on the box. It says 2 hours. Like, it's a 2-hour small box game. It's super interesting mechanics, and it's thematically right up my alley about energy and taking brine out of the lakes of California and turning that into lithium. So yeah, super excited to give it a go and report back once I've played it a few more times. So
cool.
Yeah.
All right. It's a pretty good oath round all round. I think we pretty much nailed it. Not like those other schmucks that are on this show.
Yeah.
Yeah, fire them.
Up your game.
What's that?
Fire them.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe we'll just take a poll. Who wants the three of us to just keep coming back every week?
No way. Nah.
Actually, I don't want to know the reality of that poll. Let's just leave that out entirely.
Yeah.
All right, but thank you, gentlemen. It's been fun. That brings us to the end of our show. So appreciate your time here.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks.
Well, good. And
emotional.
We'll leave it there. And 80, I think you've got a hell of a lot of editing to do. And we'll talk to you all next time.
Bye.
Bye.